All right, good afternoon or lunchtime, Russell. How are you today?
Great. Thank you, Lena. Great. And
It's
it's good to
awesome.
see you again.
You too, you too. Do you want to tell us a bit about you and what your passion is, what you're doing in life?
Great. Thanks, Lena. Well, my passion for the last 22 years has been self-development and helping people become free of limiting beliefs, emotions, and patterns. And for the last 16 years or so, most of that's been with EFT. So prior to that, I was mainly using NLP and hypnotherapy. And for the last 16 years, it's been mainly EFT and alpha repatterning. So my specialty is helping people to really access and eliminate the unconscious blocks to success in whatever area they're looking at.
Amazing. And for those that don't know what EFT is, what does it stand for and what does it do?
Great. So EFT is emotional freedom techniques, and it's a fascinating process. When I first was introduced to it, a lot of people probably heard of tapping. So I was first introduced to tapping in 2001 or 2002, and I wouldn't even look at it because it seemed so different. I felt angry that someone could claim to be able to resolve emotional issues just by tapping, when I was absolutely convinced that only hypnotic regression processes like timeline therapy could resolve that. And I remember it was about 2002. I did a swap session with another practitioner. I did some NLP and timeline therapy with her, and she did some tapping with me. And I thought it hadn't worked, but I think that was because she didn't have the skill to get me to test. So she asked me what my issue was, and I thought, okay, I feel guilty about being distracted at work. I know none of you watchers have this problem, but I'd have specific work I needed to do, and I'd be rearranging all my emails or getting distracted one way or another instead of calling my clients. So she said, well, imagine yourself in front of the computer screen when you're doing that procrastination. How do you feel? And I said, well, I feel this guilt. And she said, where did you feel? And I said, in my chest and in my throat. What's the intensity? It was, I think, an 8 or 9 out of 10. And then we began to do this tapping thing. And I did feel some immediate easing when I began to do the tapping. But within a couple of minutes, it didn't seem to be working. She said, what's the intensity? I said, well, it's still an 8 or 9. Now, what I realized later is I'd gone from the guilt that I felt in front of the computer screen to the other way that I'd procrastinate, and that was to go into the tea room and have a tea or a coffee with all the other procrastinators. So
Awesome.
it was fascinating, though, that after that, I was much more efficient in my work, and I didn't connect this crazy tapping thing to the results I've got. So fortunately, a couple of years later, a number of my friends and clients would be saying, Russell, you have to have a look at this. And I went along to a workshop, partly out of curiosity, but partly to prove this was a load of rubbish. So I was the guy sitting in the back of the room going, yeah, prove this to me. And I was getting a bit bored until he actually got us to do a demonstration. And he said, think about something that has some emotional charge. Now, that was easy for me because I had 2 stepsons. And I don't know about the other listeners, but anyone who has kids, I think that our children's purpose is to bring up whatever issues we haven't resolved with our parents. And doubly so if that's stepchildren. So this day, my stepson and I had some kind of argument. Now, I have no idea what it was about now, but he left telling me to do something that was physically impossible that I won't repeat on here. And he slammed the door so hard that the window next to the door shattered, and I was ropeable. So, he said, tune into the emotion. I'm going, gee, that's easy. That's anger and rage. Where do you feel it? And I said, it's in my heart, and it's also in my fist, because I was clenching like this and in my jaw. So we did this crazy tapping thing. And after, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 minutes, I was laughing about it. I was looking around the room, people going, oh, my back's free, or my headache's gone. Wow, everyone's getting a result. So yeah, from that day on, EFT became the biggest part of what I do here when I'm working with clients.
Amazing. And so we just go right into maybe showing something of what you do, and do a tapping round so everyone can join in. Do you want to give some instructions on how everyone could join in with their own feeling?
Yes, let's do that. And this is really important because when I started, there was no research. There was no research out there. And so it was only feeling it for myself that let me know that it worked. Whereas now there's over 100 research papers and tests, and even scans showing changes in their brain scans from doing EFT. But for most of us, if we feel it for ourselves, then we know it really works. So with EFT, the first place to start is tuning onto a very specific problem. And the more specific that is, the more effective it is.
So I could, for example, say now, as we just spoke about it, because I feel personally that in lockdown, everything was really quiet. And now I'm really bothered by noise. And then I feel like, don't other people think about me? And what hasn't bothered me before out of a sudden becomes quite bothering me. And I'm just really, the last few weeks, really asking myself, where's this coming from? Why do I feel this disturbance, anxious kind of noise disturbance?
Yeah, that I'm really glad you picked that up, because a lot of people don't. And what I'm seeing coming into my practice is an increasing number of people with social anxiety, with loneliness. A number of people I know who have had family members who have suicided in the last year or two. It's been a really big time emotionally. So what I'd like to do with you, if I can, Lena, is I want you to focus in on a specific time you feel that distraction to sounds. Is there a specific time, and can you tell me about that time?
Yeah, that is pretty much when someone has music on in the kitchen and it's on the phone. It quite bothers me.
Okay, so when you're on the phone and they've got noise there?
No, when there is music next to me in the room and it is played on a phone, because that's even a different noise than when you actually have it on a loudspeaker.
Yeah, because it's not
kind of mentally
it's all the high pitch. Yeah. And they miss those lovely bass tones. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I can certainly relate to that. Now, this is interesting. So for everyone else watching, I'd like you to think of something specific that bugs you. You know, maybe it's a headache or pain in the neck or a stiff back or sore knee or something like that. Maybe it's frustration with your partner or your ex-partner or the someone who lives next door or a colleague at work, whatever that is. And to make this more effective, it's best to think of a very specific time. So in the case with you now, Lena, is there a specific time when your housemate had that music on that you can think of that it was really bugging you?
What time that was? Yeah, like I guess it's specifically when you try to calm down in the evening, or, let's take it there.
So
when I kind of want to calm down and be more going to bed, kind of doing some quiet moments, and then this is on.
When you hear that tinny music, that would be really frustrating. Well, and that's interesting. I imagine it'd be frustrating. You might have a totally different emotion. So what's the emotion for you when you imagine yourself, it's that time of evening, you're ready to relax and wind down, maybe meditate or something like that, and then here's tinny music. What's the feeling that you feel?
Yeah, it is really, I feel possibly disrespected in my
Okay.
space.
So that's great. So disrespected is a judgment or analysis of what it is. So your need for respect wasn't met. And when we're not respected, some people might feel sad, some people might feel anxious, some people might feel angry or frustrated. What would be the actual emotion for you?
Oh, I feel really anxious because, I mean, it's a mix of feelings, because partly, obviously, because we're living in a communal here with 3 people, I feel, well, everyone should have their time of expression and should be themselves at home, you know. So obviously not the sun only rules around me. And I think you need to find compromises, but then I also feel really anxious on addressing it, like on how to communicate this so someone else doesn't get upset. And so, yeah, this has been like, and we were even talking about it the other day. I actually addressed it and I said, because even when people talk really loud, I get really kind of irritated. And, you know, I pretty much said that it has nothing to do with them. It has something to do with me personally, because I feel it. They might cause it, but I'm not saying they should stop it and it's all bad. It's just more that something, I really try to figure out what it does in myself. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
And why that is, whether someone has been really loud in my childhood or has screamed at me and it just triggers it now in my adult life. Yeah.
That's great that you mentioned that, because that's usually what it is. There's the old Jesuit saying, show me the boy of 7 and I'll show you the man. So emotionally, most of what is going on for us was put in place before the age of 7.
Yeah.
And if we have a stronger than expected response to anything, it's almost always because of something that happened in our childhood, usually before 7 and often even before the age of 3, which is why most people have trouble accessing that consciously.
Yeah.
So for those listeners here, this space isn't one to go right into a deep consultation as I would when I'm doing one-on-one consults, but we can start by going in what's current and what's bugging you right now. So for those watching the tapping along, this isn't the time to go back to that horrible trauma that happened when you were a kid, but think about something, as in Lena's case, when you're trying to relax and you feel that anxiety when there's that noise. And we'll go a bit more into communicating on that later on. But when you tune into that noise, hearing that noise when you need to relax, where in your body do you feel that anxiety?
Like I personally feel it just in my back, but I also, before I even feel like I want to say something or react to it, and like, for example, let's say closing the door, which I feel nearly embarrassed about as well, to put my boundaries up, you know. I feel it. I feel really hot in my face, and in my face, and I feel mainly pain since August, which I never had in my back. Possibly not only of the noise, but like it just really sits there. And I even can feel now when I talk to you, I just get really hot in my face.
Okay.
Like being vulnerable, addressing this even. Sharing.
So right now, it sounds more like embarrassment than anxiety, or which comes first, the anxiety or the embarrassment?
Well, first the anxiety, because that's the ultimate feeling that I'm getting as a reaction.
And then there's embarrassment about expressing it.
Yeah, towards the person, or even how to, without getting a bad feedback, you know. Feeling safe, setting your boundaries.
Yeah, and so this is a perfect example where we don't want to be too vague. So we want to pull back to that very first sound where you hear that clashing music and you feel that anxiety. And you said that's mainly in your back, or is it in your chest or shoulders?
Yeah,
where do you feel that first anxiety?
back and shoulders. yeah, just
Good. Okay.
here,
So
more upper body. Yeah.
great. So, I mean, not great that you've got it, but great that
No.
we found it and we
Yeah.
focused. So what I'd like everyone watching, you can tap along with me, and I'd like you all to tune into whatever different thing you have. Maybe you have a headache, or maybe you're angry at your mother or your brother or your sister or someone else. Or maybe there's something in your life that you're anxious or worried about. It doesn't matter what it is. Tune into what your specific thing is and give it a score out of 10. So when you hear that, so I'll just go back to you, Lena, when you hear that sound and you feel that in your back and shoulders, how big is that anxiety out of 10?
Yeah, it's like 10.
10, good. Okay, so we start by tapping on the side of the hand. You can do either hand, it doesn't matter. And just repeat with me. And those watching doing your own thing, you use the words that describe what you're doing, or you can even say the same words that we're saying here with the intention of resolving your specific thing. So even though I feel this anxiety,
even though I feel this anxiety
in my shoulders and back,
in my shoulders and back,
when I hear that tinny trashy music,
when I hear that teeny trashy music,
I accept myself as much as I can.
I accept myself as much as I can.
Even though I feel this anxiety,
even though I feel this anxiety,
and my back and shoulders tighten up,
and my back and shoulders tighten up.
Is that accurate?
Yeah.
Yeah. I accept myself deeply and completely.
I accept myself deeply and completely.
Even though I feel all this anxiety.
Even though I feel all this anxiety.
When I hear that tinny music.
When I hear that teeny music.
I accept myself.
I accept myself.
Yeah. The next point, that's called the setup, that first part. The next part, we tap on the point, start in the top center of the head. And if you're busy with the other hand, you can use one hand. I personally find that it feels more balanced to use two, but you'll get the same results using just one. And just tune into that time when you heard that music and just say, all this anxiety.
All this anxiety.
And then just tap on the inside of the eyebrows where the eyebrows come together here. This anxiety in my back and shoulders.
This anxiety in my back and shoulders.
And then the next one is on the bone next to the side of the eye. This anxiety when I hear that music from the phone.
This anxiety when I hear that music from the phone.
And then under the eye, this phone music anxiety.
This phone music anxiety.
And then under the nose, this phone music anxiety.
This phone music anxiety.
And then in the valley of the chin, just below the lower lip, this phone music anxiety.
This phone music anxiety.
Good. Then the next point is just below the inner edge of the collarbone. So if you follow your fingers along till you find the bumps of the collarbone, just slide down about 1 or 2 centimeters to the little hollow under the inner collarbone. Yeah, that's it. And just say, all this anxiety.
All this anxiety.
Now, the next point is a hand's width below the armpit, roughly where the bra strap goes across, but I'm not going to put on a bra to show you. And it's in line with the seam of your shirt.
Okay.
And some people can reach 2 sides. Some people find it easier just to do one. And just say, all this anxiety in my chest and shoulders.
All this anxiety in my chest and shoulders.
And then we go back to the top of the head. This anxiety in my chest and shoulders.
This anxiety in my chest and shoulders.
The inside of the eyebrow, all this anxiety.
All this anxiety.
On the side of the eye, this anxiety when I hear that tinny music.
This anxiety when I hear that tinny music.
This phone music anxiety.
This phone music anxiety.
This anxiety that makes my back and shoulders tight.
This anxiety that makes my neck and shoulders tight.
Then in the crease of the chin, all this anxiety.
All this anxiety.
And then under the collarbone, this anxiety in my back and shoulders.
This anxiety in my back and shoulders.
The arm, anxiety in my back and shoulders.
Anxiety in my back and shoulders.
Good. Now just take a deep breath. There you go. And now I want you to close your eyes, tune into that time when you're trying to get peaceful time in the evening and you hear that phone music. And what's that anxiety up to now out of 10?
5.
5, good. And is it still in the back and shoulders or somewhere else?
It's possibly more in my head.
Yeah, good, good. And is there a thought that comes with that?
Well, yeah, my thought is literally that it's actually fine, but it's just, it just kind of still annoys me. Like it's
good.
And
Good.
it
So
annoys me also about myself not addressing it.
good.
Properly.
So I just want to check in, and I just want to make sure that it seems it's changed from anxiety to annoyed. Would that be accurate?
Mm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's go with that. And is that annoyed feeling the 5 out of 10?
Yeah.
Great. And this is great for those people watching, that often we reduce or resolve one emotion and then up comes the next thing. So is it more annoyed or frustrated?
I think it's also a bit like fear and just standing up for myself and actually articulate it, that it annoys me and that I don't need to have a reason for it. It just simply does.
So let's clear the annoyed first, and then we'll go to the anxious about speaking up. Yeah. So even though I feel annoyed.
Even though I feel annoyed.
When I hear that, how did you describe that music?
Oh, it's just like a metally kind of, just no bass, kind of electronic sounding sound.
Yeah. Okay. So even though I hear this metal electronic sound.
Even though I hear this metal electronic sound.
And it's really annoying.
And it's really annoying.
I accept myself.
I accept myself.
Even though I feel annoyed at this metallic electronic sound.
Even though what was that? feel annoyed at this electronic sound. I deeply and completely, accept myself.
Even though I feel really annoyed.
Even though I feel really annoyed.
At this electronic sound with no bass.
At this electronic sound with no bass.
I accept myself deeply and completely.
I accept myself deeply and complete.
Then on top of the head. Annoyed at this sound.
Annoyed at this sound.
On the inside of the eyebrows, annoyed at this electronic sound.
Annoyed at this electronic sound.
Annoyed at this sound.
Annoyed at this sound.
And under the eye, annoyed at this electronic sound.
Annoyed at this electronic sound.
Under the nose, it doesn't even have any bass.
That sound that doesn't have any bass.
Now, to me, I would say that doesn't have any heart if it doesn't have bass. But
yeah.
Yeah. Annoyed at this electronic sound.
Annoyed at this electronic sound.
Let's just go to the collarbone point. Annoyed at this electronic sound.
Yeah, annoyed at this loud electronic sound.
Annoyed at this loud electronic sound.
Annoyed at this loud electronic sound.
Good. Now just tune into that now. When you hear that loud electronic sound that's tinny with no bass. And
it's like gone for me now.
Good, good. Now I want you now to tune into, how do you feel about expressing your boundaries, about saying, hey, that's not appropriate? Yeah,
that is really, I feel if I do this, someone is screaming at me and be like, what do you have to say? And why? And I play in my head all through what someone can react to me, and I need to then stand up for it when I would rather run away from it and go in my little hole, because what do I have to
Yeah.
mean and say in this world? That's how I feel. Well, I'm pretty vulnerable here, guys. Here you go.
Here's the thing. So many people have that issue. And, you know, I've got something I need to address. I'm probably going to have to tap on that too. This,
Yeah.
you know, I gave someone some money and they don't remember me giving it to them. So, you know, we've all got those things. And there's part of me that the pleaser in me that's afraid of conflict says, I don't bother, it's only $100, you know, let it go. And then I think, no, hang on. You know, that's an important boundary that's important to speak about.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Feeling your own support, possibly.
Yeah. You know? And by the way, I'm not surprised that this turns to neck and back problems, because before we got online here, you mentioned that you had some pain in your back.
Yeah.
And actually, just before we keep tapping, it would have been good actually to check in on the intensity of that pain before we started. But
yeah, I feel it has gone. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
that's reduced from this tap. Is it completely gone, or is it what would it be?
Mostly. Yeah. I was pretty tense, and now it's 2 or 3.
2 or 3. And what was it before we started?
Yeah, possibly 15.
Was that okay?
Yeah, it was quite really intense. You know, it's even though I stretch and I have massages, I think I know it's coming from my head all along.
So all those things, stretches, exercising, massages, you know, having an alkaline diet, drinking enough water, and all these are really great. And at the same time, what I've found is that when I've been working on health problems, the biggest part of it is resolving the emotional stuff.
I think it's also you just holding it, because you haven't really found a solution. So the thought comes up on and on, which of course resonates on and on back in your body again, because you haven't actually, you know, like saluted it.
Absolutely. You know, I remember 20 years ago, road rage was a big thing for me. You know, I had a corporate job just this side of the city, and it was 45 minutes to an hour each way driving to and from work. And if someone cut me off, I'd be yelling and swearing and carrying on. They didn't even know me, but I would go right into that fury. And what was fascinating was I never actually did any specific work on that, but I did a bunch of work resolving early childhood issues, mainly mum and dad stuff, and a little bit with my sister. And once I'd resolved that, I remember I was driving to work and someone cut me off, and I'm going, oh, she's in a hurry. Oh, that's different. I would spend my whole day going in and out of anger, just thinking about the person that cut me off in traffic. I wouldn't do it, but I would imagine passing them and cutting them off to get them back. It's crazy. You know, and I think that person that cut me off, I probably cut them off 5 minutes earlier. Who knows?
Yeah. But it's like interesting how your awareness shifts, because, you know, because it's not like, okay, I never play music on my phone, but sometimes I have it on in my room, and it might annoy people as well. And they're also not addressing it because you live together, and you sometimes, you know, need to, it would just be good to be capable of, for example, at my ex-partner's dad's house, the neighbor had radio on all day on their porch, and you could hear it in his garden. It never bothered anyone, you know. But it's like you just go to places, I don't know, where something out of a sudden triggers you, and it's like, because I'm not blaming anyone and I'm not playing the victim here. That's also what I want to say. It's more like that I really try to discover why specifically I feel that way, because, you know, it's and why it goes so deep when in fact it's just a music song playing, you know. It's not like so
there's a couple of things about this, and one is that it's not healthy to have loud stuff going on all around us. That puts us in a continually heightened state.
Yeah,
you know, that's almost like being on some stimulant drug all the time. That said, we're in a world where we're bombarded with stuff all the time.
Yeah.
And for a lot of people, it's become normal. We become numb to that.
Yeah.
But when we go to deal with that, there's two sides when I'm working with clients on these kind of issues. One is to resolve our emotions about it so that we're not hypersensitive and triggered by everything. That's the first step. Then we need to clear our fear of expressing it, fear of their response back, which usually goes back to early childhood stuff where, you know, we couldn't speak up to maybe our parents or a big brother or sister, or maybe it's a school teacher or whatever, for fear of their anger coming back at us. And once we resolve that, then it's helpful to learn some communication techniques like NVC, nonviolent communication, that help us to communicate our emotions more honestly without blame. And that's probably a subject for another.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, absolutely.
But let's tune in now. How big is that fear or anxiety about expressing that to your housemate?
It has lessened, like less. I think I could do it now, but I definitely know what's ingrained in me is that I feel when I spoke to my family or my mom, there would always come a not so great response. My dad's family, they're mostly laughing, and my mom was definitely stressed a lot. And
here's
that came back. And I think that's how I feel as well, because I'm just like, I feel so tiny. I'm like, and then I have all these scenarios in my head of what could happen when I actually say something. And
of course, to a fair degree, it depends how you say it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So when people are fearful, they can say it with an expectation of getting something back, and they're more likely to get it, especially if they're trying to be really, really gentle about it.
Yeah.
It's almost like we're going with a sign on our forehead saying, kick me, you know. Whereas when we're really clear emotionally, we can express our feelings and our needs without there being any inherent fear or blame or anything like that in it. And we're much more likely to get what we want from that. So tuning in now, and imagine going to your housemate and saying, or expressing your issue with the music. How does that feel now?
Yeah, it feels good.
Yeah. Is there any fear or concern or worry at all about that?
No.
Okay. So this is interesting because I had a very similar thing with my housemate about a year ago. And I just went up and used nonviolent communication with him. And I just said, hey, I can hear you're really enjoying that music, so I'm connecting with you. Yeah, building rapport. I said, for me now, I'm getting ready to go to bed and I need to get a good night's sleep. Would you be willing to use earphones so that I can sleep well? And he said, yeah, sure, no problem. And that was partly because I wasn't, angry about it, but largely using that technique of nonviolent communication where there's no actual blame in it. So essentially with nonviolent communication, we talk about how we feel and what our need is.
Yeah. But that's exactly it, that's also a thing where you feel actually safe. Like you need to feel safe to address that.
Yes, absolutely.
And you need to even know how to express how you feel. I feel like most of the time, I don't even know how to express that, on saying even, how I yeah, how I feel. Because yeah, that's
And
what I discovered, like even in my relationships. And it's really interesting because like even in my relationship with males, it's really hard for me to say what I need. And then because I feel like I'm rejected if I say what I need. When of course for people it's actually much easier because you tell them, and it's you get a line on understanding others, but it's actually rather it's not easy.
This is a common thing that comes up in relationships where if people don't express, the resentment builds up, and then eventually there's an explosion and all the emotions come up. And then I have clients coming in saying, I thought he was a really lovely guy. Things were great for the first 3 months, 6 months, whatever it is. And then he became horrible, just like my mother or father or brother or whatever else. And when we resolve that earlier stuff and resolve the emotions, they're then able to communicate more effectively. But one of the keys is not waiting until it escalates to here, to mention it when it's down here.
Yeah.
And when we can resolve that emotion and talk about our needs and emotions in a way that doesn't blame. So there's no you in this. There's no you inconsiderate, selfish person having the music up, because there's all the blame in that. And most people there will either attack back or they'll become defensive. And either way, you're less likely to get what you want. But when the emotions are resolved, and there's also with that, there's a skill to accessing our real emotions, because a lot of us as kids were told our emotions are not right. And so we shut them in.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'll ask a client, how did you feel when that happened? And, some of my clients will say, I felt betrayed, or I felt like they didn't respect me, or I felt disrespected. Well, none of those are actually emotions. If 5 different people are betrayed by someone, one might feel angry, one might feel hurt, one might feel sad, one might feel anxious, another might feel helpless.
I guess that's also about control in a way, because the thing is you can address even things, but you never know how someone reacts to it either. And that's also a scary thing on what if someone is not compliant, and you just want to be peace and harmony and quiet, but then when you address something and then someone does not stop it or does not understand what your needs are and then continues to do things or obviously be themselves, which is fine, and then what do you do then? Because then
well, actually, here's the thing: if it's not respectful, it's not fun. You and I are respectful people, and if a housemate came up to us and said, this is a problem for me, we would tend, if possible, to do whatever we can to make that work for them. However, if by nature we are a pleaser, and especially if we're anxious about it, the way we will approach is almost asking for rejection. And equally, if someone is really angry when they approach, that also is more likely to get a reaction, an unwanted reaction, and less likely to get what they want. Or if that angry person does get what they want, they might get compliance for that moment, and then that little thing in the back of the other person's head goes, and then they're going to get more non-compliance later on. So yeah, the keys to really resolving all these issues is to resolve that early childhood stuff that sets up the pattern, resolve the fear and the other emotions around the anger, frustration, whatever is around the behavior we want to address, and then addressing in a skillful way where I talk about how I feel and what my needs are. And then the other person usually is much more likely to comply. Whereas if someone feels that we are blaming them or thinks that we're blaming them, they're more likely then to feel anxious or annoyed, and they're less likely to comply.
Mm. And so if we, for example, be at home now and we just, let's say we can't go anywhere, or we can't see you in Wonga Park, but I will link your business page to in the show notes so people can contact you. What can I do at home if I feel like that?
Great. So certainly the first step is tune into the feeling and where you feel it in the body.
Mm.
Give it a score out of 10, and then do the tapping. In fact, if you go back to the beginning of the video and tap along with the tapping that we did earlier on, while saying the words that best describe how you feel, then that will usually ease that tension and make it easier for you to address the problem.
Yeah.
And in some cases, just tapping on the emotion means the problem no longer needs to be addressed.
Mm-hmm.
But usually there's still something you need to say, hey, I feel uncomfortable or upset or sad or whatever the emotion is when this happens.
And so to the technique as well, I think you can also hold points, right? You not necessarily need to tap them, because I remember when I met you 10 years ago, I could even not tap on myself because who knows why. And then you said, oh, you can also hold the points. So if someone can't tap or reach, or, maybe we can also, just hold it.
So in our workshops and when I'm working one-on-one with people, we go into all the different ways of doing EFT. The most common is to use tapping, but if someone is physically sensitive, or if someone is a young baby, or if someone's elderly and fragile, then touch and breathe is one good way. So you just touch the points, take a breath in, a breath out, and then go to the next point. You do that, of course, while you're focusing on whatever the problem is, or saying words that describe the problem. There are other versions that involve tapping on the fingers or squeezing on the fingers that we'll go into more maybe in another session. That are great to use. I've got a client at the moment who's going through a really heavy duty court case, and my client's using this finger squeezing in the court case that's going to enable them to be really clear and stay emotionally focused. And it's interesting how I've worked with a number of people, and it's really turned around the outcome in court cases when we've been able to tap on their fears, concerns, and other emotions before going into court. And then in the court, they can do that finger squeezing variation of EFT.
Mm-hmm.
So that it's such an adaptable tool.
Yeah.
I've used it with everything from helping people to double, triple, or quadruple their income, to attracting their ideal partner, to resolving issues within a relationship, to insomnia, to weight loss and addictive problems, all sorts of things.
Yeah.
And it's just such a versatile tool.
I guess we're just holding it in ourselves, and it's a good technique to let it go and or even become aware of it if you actually work with someone as well.
Yes, I think that,
and maybe also a technique if you can't really verbalize it necessarily, that it still moves, How does it even work? Maybe you can say a few more words about that. So I think it works on the nerve endings on acupuncture points.
This is fascinating. The original theory behind it is that we're resolving the energy disturbance that is the cause of the emotion or the pain. So the initial theory was this: when it was considered that we had a thought, and that thought caused the emotional upset. And that's logical, because we'd think about something and then we get angry or sad or feel hurt or lonely or whatever it is. But what Gary Craig, who developed EFT, realized was there was a step in between. So we had that thought, and then there would be a disturbance in our body's energy system, and that disturbance causes the emotion or the physical tension or pain. And when we focus on the problem and tap, what we're doing is we're realigning our energy system in relation to that specific emotion or event. Now, since then, the research that's come out has shown how it affects our whole nervous system. So one beautiful piece of research that was done at Bond University with Dr. Stapleton, they would have people that had food cravings, and let's say, someone's favorite food is ice cream or the chocolate bun or whatever it is. They would think about that bun or that ice cream or chocolate or whatever it was, and certain parts of their brain would light up. And it was that action in the brain that was the addictive trigger. And they would apply EFT over a few weeks. And at the end of a few weeks, they could think about that bun or that ice cream or whatever it is, and there's no light up. There's no triggering in the brain, and therefore there's no desire anymore. Mm-hmm. Now, long before those brain scans, we knew that was what was happening, because I'd get people that would eat those lolly snakes by the packet, one after the other, or chocolate one after the other, and often just one session of EFT, and they go, you know what, I don't really want it. It tastes too sweet, or it tastes artificial. And what's happening there is, what we're actually doing is resolving the emotion that drives them to go for that thing. So any addictive behavior is caused by some anxiety or some emotional need that we suppress by that eating or that drug or that alcohol or whatever it is. So yeah, fascinating how versatile it is. And maybe we can get together again and talk about using EFT for physical pain, for relationships.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, totally. We can totally do this. I think that would be great to have a few more sessions on different topics. I think it really helps, specifically now. I mean, always, but I think specifically now, after people have been through unknown years of things and everyone is turned upside down, it's a good way of settling. And I think that's also why things come out, because before I feel like I lived so long with people and things had never bothered me. I mean, I also moved room, and so it's much noisier here than the room I used to be in. And yeah, it's really interesting how also things, obviously come out at different stages in life that hadn't bothered you before. Yes. But it's good to look at them, and it's so we're just going to tap a bit today, and when it happens again, I'm going to tap in the situation and just help myself to address it.
That's great.
Is there anything I haven't asked you that you would like to share?
Well, I just want to say, if anyone wants to find out more, the easiest way is just to call me on 0414 874 944, or check out my website, selfdevelopment.com.au. And there's probably links going down below, so that'll be good. I'm happy for you to call or catch me through the website and ask any questions, and really look forward to helping everyone to achieve their goals.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. And from all your work and your inner wisdom that you gathered, do you have anything deeply from your heart that is a message you like to share with the world that, it's kind of like your little golden nugget that you just found for yourself?
Yeah, I'd like to say this. I think back to the mid-90s when, I was at the end of my second marriage, feeling like a total failure. I was sabotaging my career. I had heaps of physical pain in my body, and many years of trying all sorts of treatments gave me little or no benefit. And I'd just like to say, wherever you are, there is hope. And the biggest part for most things is resolving those emotional issues. Usually they're things you're not even consciously aware of. But just know that whatever it is out there you're going through, you can get through it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. It was great.
Thanks,
It was
Lena.
like, yeah, I feel like I opened myself up a lot. Now I have to tap on this and be like, it's all good. Well, thanks so much. And yeah, talk with you again. I'm sure
That'd be great.
it's going to
Thanks,
be some
Lena.
awesome things coming out.
That'd be awesome.
Have a good
Okay.
day. Bye.
See you then. Thank you. Bye-bye.